Okay, welcome to today's video. Now, in today's series, we're going to talk about the training component of the plan. You may have heard me talk about before the most important training aspect of a fat loss plan, and that is weight training or some kind of resistance training. You may think heaps of cardio or focusing on burning lots of calories or all these other maybe popular methods that you'll see, but when it comes to weight training, the reason it is so significant and so important, like we mentioned before, when we're losing fat, there's a potential to lose muscle tissue, which is not what we want because we're trying to tone up our body. So lose the fat and maintain or build some of that muscle. In combination with getting enough protein, the weight training forces our body to hold on and maintain all of that muscle tissue we have. Because if we're not weight training, our body doesn't have a use for it. So there's a higher rate of muscle loss. So the weight training component is basically to hold on to all that tight toned muscle tissue. So when we lose the fat around, we're going to look toned. We're going to have very good shape to our body. Among the other things I mentioned, your metabolism is going to be higher. You're going to have higher levels of strength and lower rates of fat regain, etc., etc. As well as that, obviously, major benefit of weight training. We can also work to strengthen parts of the body up and maybe negate some of the muscle imbalances in today's world from sitting down, which we'll talk about in the future. So it's not only to look better visually, but hopefully move better and feel better. That should be the overall goal of a training program. For most people, 3 days a week, on average, weight training, resistance training is a good number. We kind of need to stimulate our muscles every, say, 3 days. So having that kind of split is perfect. Now, within a training plan, we're going to focus on 5 main movements. Any successful plan encompasses these same movements. We're going to keep it as simple as possible. I'm going to provide you with example workouts at the end of this, depending on your beginner level, etc. But we can talk through it quickly. So those main movement patterns are your squat pattern. We have a push pattern, pull, hinge, and core. Squat pattern, just think of a squat, goblet squat, back squat, split squat, a lunge encompasses that. A push pattern, we could have a push-up, we could have a shoulder press. So there's 2 different types of push and pull patterns. We have our horizontal ones like a bench press or a push-up, and then we have our vertical ones, shoulder press. Same goes for our pull movements. We have a horizontal pull, like a seated row or a barbell row, TRX row, and then a vertical row, like a lat pull down or a chin-up. A hinge pattern, think of a deadlift, back extension, Romanian deadlift, and a core, which encompasses a few exercises. We won't go into too much. If we're training 3 days a week, for most people, again, full body is probably the most beneficial, especially at the start. Those movements are the types of movements our training is going to be centered around. What will become a bit more specific will be the exact type of exercise within that movement. So, for example, if we look at squat, we may have a goblet squat in the middle. Harder version may be a barbell back squat or a barbell front squat. And then the easiest version may just be a squat with your hands in front holding a plate. What we're always trying to do is start off and allow somebody to execute the movement safely, get a handle on that movement pattern, and then progress up the movements as they go. But it's good to see that progression. The same way, too many people skip all the steps, they go too far ahead, they don't have that movement pattern, and then they end up advancing too quick, which means they're not doing the movement correctly. They're not targeting the muscles they're supposed to, and they're also increasing the risk of injury. So within the workouts I'll give you some progressions and regressions to go off. But the main thing is start with the safest version, the one which requires the least technique for where you are in this current moment of time. And then we progress them as we get stronger and as your movement becomes better and you get more flexible, etc., etc. When it comes to screening clients, normally when I'm online or face-to-face business, I'll have a screening process where I can see where that person's at and then tailor the program to them. But for you, I'll give you some options and then you can pick the most appropriate one. Safe is always best because it means you're not going to get injured. Too many people try to run before they walk and set them up for failure. If you're in the gym, again, you're going to have more tools available. But if you're at home, you'll just, especially for the rowing motion, the rowing movements, and maybe some of the hip hinge movements, you may just need to see what weighted stuff you can get around you. On the days in between, if somebody wants to progress, which we'll talk about in the plateau in the future, they could simply add maybe a cardio day on the days in between Okay, so once we get our weight training days covered, then we will use our activity outside of the gym to be able to burn calories. We don't necessarily want to focus on calorie burning while we're doing weight training, because to be honest, it doesn't burn that many calories. Don't stress about not burning a lot. I think the average is like 150 to 200 calories, which is basically F all. So once we get that covered, that's to maintain muscle. Then we can use our steps or maybe extra cardio or hobbies or just being active as a way of burning more calories if we need to, in combination with nailing and nutrition. Average sets per week to be able to do ranges from 12 to 15. So if you're doing 4 sets on a Monday of a push movement, 4 sets Wednesday, that's 12. Okay, then we have that covered. If you're a beginner, you may want to start off with the minimal effective doses. So you might start off with 4 sets because that may make you too sore. So your first workout or two, you might just start with 2 sets, see how you feel, and then slowly progress. We don't want to be crippled after each workout. A little bit of muscle soreness, but they've even seen muscle soreness is not associated with a good workout. So I always use the example of getting the suntan. Don't do like most Irish people do when it's sunny. Go out and get absolute sizzle and sit in the sun all day. Instead, go out, get a little bit, come back. Don't get burnt. Go out, get a little bit, and just build up your volume. The same way with training, we want to do that as well. In combination with that, I've included a small mobility plan in the warm-up. Just some areas that people are normally tight, around the hips, around the shoulders and chest, etc. In regards, I always get asked about interval training. Interval training is basically a type of training where you're burning a relatively good amount of calories in a small amount of time. The problem I see was that people a lot of time kill themselves when they're trying to do it, and they haven't built that base. So what I would say, and I can give an interval progression in the series as well, I would say start off with your main 3 resistance training days. When that feels very easy and you want to progress, you can add some cardio in the days in between. When you've built a good aerobic base, then we can maybe add some intervals on the days in between, or even after the weight training days. But it's kind of a progression we can see where we're building on, build it up slowly in regards of volume, the same way it would our behavior. So there you go. That's just a brief overview. I've included all the workouts, whether you're at home or whether you're in the gym, whether you're more advanced and you want to train 4 days, or whether you're just starting off training 3 days, with progressions and regressions of each. As always, if you have injuries, consult a physio. As we said, I'm always one to specify a plan individually, but these should give most people good guidelines as well. So there we go, brief overview into training with some examples. Let me know how you go. Send me an email how the training plans go if you have any questions. And yes, we're getting started with the component to tone you up. Everything else is going to help lose the fat around there, and we're slowly starting to create a great physique to last you forever.